This ain't rap, it's blood sport. Your life cut short, you fell short. The pressure's on high, full court.
Hello, hello, hello. How are we all doing today? Uh, I'm doing wonderful. We have another one of these draft grades coming up for the entire division. Today we're doing the NFC East, and we got a lot of new viewers to the channel. So let me go ahead and fill y'all in for the schedule, at least for this next week. I feel like for the next 7 days straight, I believe, we're gonna have 2 videos a week, and I'm gonna let y'all vote on it. Well, one per week is going to be a draft grade for the division, obviously. But y'all have voted on the last poll, NFC East. I will put a new poll out to decide if we're doing the NFC West or North next video. And then obviously the following division following that. And then I'll let y'all vote the order of the AFC grades. And also we do a little lowlights video every day. That's what this channel was built off of. My little lowlight compilations. And tomorrow, well, the day you see this video, I believe there will also be Stetson Bennett Part 2 out a little shortly after you're watching this right now. And I also let y'all vote on that. So the next poll will be out. I believe it's going to be between Jake Haener, Clayton Tune, and maybe a Jaren Hall Part 2. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, if you're new to the channel, this is what we do, draft grades and lowlights. So let's get right into it. I'm not going to hold y'all for much longer. So first up, well, this is the NFC East. First up, we got the Cowboys. And let me say, this division, it has a lot of very relevant teams in it. Let me put it that way. And I will try, well, I don't feel like I am biased, because just because I like an NFC team, the Seahawks, I'm a Seahawks fan, and I feel like we got some competition, a lot of competition in this division. Hell, the Seahawks play the NFC East this year, but I think it's important to be unbiased, especially when you're evaluating other teams. You cannot like a team, but if you're dishonest about how good a team is or something like that, I think it just makes you look worse. So I'm gonna try and be as unbiased as possible throughout these entire draft grades. But let's get right into the Cowboys, and let me tell y'all. I didn't love it. I didn't love it. If you're new to these grades, obviously I'm going to grade each pick a team made from a scale of F all the way to an A plus, and there is some math behind this where I'm going to add them all up and get the average afterwards. Starting with the Cowboys' first four pick, let's just start from the top. Mazi Smith. Do I think defensive tackle was a need for the Cowboys? Yes. Do I think Mazi Smith will fill that need? Yes. Do I think it was good value at 26? Do I think he was the best player on the board? So just based off that, I don't love the pick. At first, I gave it a D plus, slept on it. I'm ending up with a C minus because I do think Mazi Smith will be a valuable role player for the Cowboys moving forward. If you were actually paying attention on draft night, I think Nolan Smith was who got leaked that, every pick was announced 3, 4 minutes ahead. And it was actually announced that it was Nolan Smith in 26. And I saw a lot of Cowboys fans happy at that. And then they found out it was Mazi Smith and they were like, oh. But I've slept on it. I do think it is better than I gave it credit for at the beginning. However, I still don't think he was the best player on the board, and I still don't think it was necessarily good value at 26. So I gave it a C minus. Next up, this is our first F. Let me put it like that. Uh, 5 teams in now. This is the first F, and I have no problem. Luke Shoemaker, I don't even know. Cowboys fans didn't even want a tight end unless it was, Michael Mayer or Dalton Kincaid. And if they did, they wanted Darnell Washington. This was not any of those guys. This is Luke Shoemaker. I think he's going to be a blocking tight end 3 with the 58th overall pick. And a lot of good players on the board. I feel bad. A lot of Cowboys fans. And let me also clarify here. The grades are not just my opinion. A lot of this is the fans' opinion, right? So an immediate reactionary take, I go to every team's fan page, look at what they got to say about every pick, and I draw from that while also using my own opinion here. And it seems like a wide consensus here that everybody hates this pick. If you would have told me Luke Shoemaker went in the 4th or 5th round, I'd say, oh, that's okay. 2nd round, it's a rough time to be a Cowboys fan just based off these first 2 picks. It was not great. And this red F clarifies. If you didn't already know, that was their worst pick of the draft. But they followed that up with DeMarvion Overshown. Love that name, by the way. Um, this was a good one. Obviously the Cowboys have been trying to find linebacker with, Jalen Smith not panning out, and they didn't have to go far. Went to Austin, Texas, pulled out DeMarvion Overshown. The fans were very happy about this, and I think it was good value. In the third round, I think he's a guy that's going to fly over all around the field, make a lot of plays. So I do think that was the best pick of the draft. Um, and next up at 129, I'm not even going to embarrass myself or disrespect him by trying to say bro's name. Defensive end out of San Jose State. And look, from what I've gathered, this is going to be a rotational. Well, they hope it's going to be a rotational pass rusher. I gave it a C though because I don't see how this pick necessarily helps the Cowboys. I don't like it when teams who are trying to compete make picks that don't really do anything for it. They don't move the needle. You know what I'm saying? So no disrespect to Fajoku Jr. here, but I'm just not sure that this really does much for them. At least next year, maybe they can develop him. And keep in mind the Cowboys historically are an amazing drafting team, right? So I try to give them the benefit of the doubt on some of these, but I'm not, I don't got a strong opinion on Fehoko Jr. Next up, we got a Sim Richards. Again, this is a guy who they drafted in hopes that maybe next season, in the absence of Tyron Smith, could be a starter. If that's the case, then this is a pick with a lot of potential, right, to be even better than the B minus. But as of right now, I'm not sure how much he's going to play day one. But I do think it was good value at 169, so I did give it a B minus. Eric Scott Jr. For some reason, everybody was hung up on his 40 time. I think he ran like a 4.7 40 as a corner, but I do think he pulled like a quad mid run and he still finished it. So that's not really a big deal to me. But I gave this a C plus simply off the fact that they addressed corner. I do think corner was a need. Hell, if they would have went Joey Porter at 26, I probably would have given that an A minus even. So I like the fact they addressed corner, even though it was in the later rounds. So C plus on that one. Next up, we got a yellow grade. A yellow signifies I feel like that was the steal of their draft individually. And Deuce Vaughn in the sixth round. I don't even, was it the sixth? I think it was the sixth round. 212. It was a cool little moment. His dad got to draft his son. That was if you've seen that clip, that was pretty wholesome. And I don't look. I running back was a big need, right? And I like the fact that they drafted Deuce Vaughn. He's a playmaker. But my only concern is that I feel like him and Tony Pollard are kind of similar play styles. Neither of them are really big physical backs. So I'm not sure if they're going to use them on the field at the same time. Do we see Deuce Vaughn or maybe Tony Pollard in the slot at times, or do they just go with a guy like what's his name, Ronald Jones, to try and punch it in goal line situations? I'm not really sure, but I do think Deuce Vaughn will look very good in the Cowboys uniform, and I do think we're going to see him make a couple plays here. And Jalen Brooks, look, interesting thing about Jalen Brooks, this is a linebacker converted to wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken. I've never seen that before. I've seen linebacker to tight end, but linebacker to receiver. So the guy's like 6'2", 200 some pounds, I think, and he only had like 500 yards last season as his first full season. I'm not really sure, and this is not available because I'm not sure dude's going to make the roster. So if I don't think a guy is going to actually play on the team, I'm not going to give it a grade and let it impact the overall score. If we're looking at the overview here, you can see the grading scale I use, and we can see the distribution of their picks they made. We had a lot of front seven in this class for the Cowboys, and not really a lot of guys who I think are going to make an impact, at least offensively, day one. I think Deuce Vaughn, we'll see him put up maybe 400 to 500 total yards of offense next season. Shoemaker, I mean, he'll be in there at times, but I would have loved them. I would have loved to see them give Dak some help. That's what I really would have loved this draft, and they didn't really do that. And I'm not sure if you can see that overall grade. It's a 4.36, and if it's not even, I have some discretion there. I could have rounded up to a C plus, but I gave it a C. Man, I was not very happy with this draft for the Cowboys. So yeah, I would. Yeah, I think it was one of the weakest we've seen so far. Next up, we got the Commanders, and I'll be honest, this is one where I'm going to put my reputation on the line a little bit. So let's get right into it. Emmanuel Forbes at 16, I hated the pick. I have to be completely honest because he was my CB7. And I say that because the first thing, he would not have been on my board if I was a GM and hey, I'm a guy sitting on his bed right now making draft grade videos, okay? I'm not trying to say I know more than any GM or any scout or anything like that. But he was my CB7, and he's 165 pounds. He also leads the NCAA in all-time pick sixes, okay? But look at that frame. Does that guy look like an NFL cornerback or a sprinter? Okay, he looks like a sprinter to me. And I hate the people who are talking about, oh, he'll get up to 185, 190, and it won't be a problem. Do you think that frame can add on 20 to 25 pounds? No. If the guy gets to 175 pounds, I think you have to call it a win. And even then, I just think he's too small and slender to play in the NFL consistently. Could he make some very good plays downfield? Hell yeah. Will he get out muscled by every big body receiver he plays? Absolutely. Will he be a non-factor or possibly even a negative in the run game? I think so. And at 16, look, I didn't have a first round grade on Forbes. I think he might have been available at 46. So I think it's a massive reach on a position you needed. Credit to the Commanders. They think he can be a cornerback for the future for them, but I don't see it. He was cornerback 7 for me. I think he was the sixth best corner available to pass on guys like Joey Porter and Gonzalez. And I understand they play a lot of zone, so he won't necessarily get exposed as much in that scheme. But I hate the pick, man. I hate the pick. And if he turns out to be great, I will recap or, come back to this video and admit I was wrong. But I don't think I'm going to be wrong. I did not love that pick whatsoever. And then we had them doubling down on secondary. This one I understand more because I think this is Kendall Fuller's last year, if I'm not mistaken. Jartavius Martin, I think he's going to play safety, and he will eventually replace Kendall Fuller, so that it'll be Jartavius Martin and then Cam Curl as the opposite safety. So I don't hate this pick. I just I don't love it, man. If this would have been, if they would have took O'Cyrus Torrence at 16 and then Morton at 47, okay. I don't love the idea of doubling up on secondary. I thought there were other positions they needed more. I gave it a C. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe this is a C plus or a B minus, but I don't see Martin playing a big role next season whatsoever. Next up, though, Ricky Stromberg, all SEC first team, listed as a center, but I've heard he has versatility as guard as well, and they needed offensive line badly. So I think this was their best pick. I really did like this pick because I had them taking, interior offensive line at 16, several mock drafts. So for them to get, a very good role player at 97, possibly even a starter day one, I love that. I think that was their best pick. And moving right into their next pick, Braden Daniels out of Utah, another guy, another versatile offensive lineman who at worst is going to provide some good depth and at best could also be a starter. I gave this their steal of draft, another A minus. I really like, these back-to-back picks addressing that offensive line. And I think we're going to see the ripple effects through the entire offense, with whoever plays quarterback getting more time and a lot more run lanes for Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and another guy we're about to talk about. At 137, KJ Henry. I was scratching my head a little bit here, but I did hear that he is going to be Shaka Toney's replacement eventually. So I'll give it to you. I'll trust that he will replace Shaka Toney and be a productive pass rusher for him. So I gave that one a B. Chris Rodriguez Jr. I actually like Chris Rodriguez Jr. I think this is a guy. If Will Levis probably doesn't have this guy these last 2 years at Kentucky, I'm not sure Will Levis gets drafted. I'll be very frank with you. This guy made Will Levis and that whole Kentucky team look a little better than it was. But I've heard and I understand that this guy is probably going to replace Antonio Gibson. However, they don't really share the same play style whatsoever. I think him and Brian Robinson are both big physical first and second down backs. Neither of them can really catch out of the backfield. If Brian Robinson add that to his game, then that's a whole new story. That's a very scary player. But Chris Rodriguez, he's not that guy. Maybe he can do it, but he didn't in college. So I don't understand the idea there. I think maybe you could have got a guy just after the draft, like maybe a Sean Tucker, for example, who could have. I don't know. I don't love this pick at 193. And then Andre Jones Jr. They were crying for linebacker. The Commanders were all draft. He is not an inside linebacker. I think he's a 3-4 defensive end, they were saying. So call it what you will. I gave it a C plus because maybe he will add you some depth at outside linebacker. But if we get overall a big emphasis on the offensive line and the defense, Chris Rodriguez, I don't really think that moves the needle. And I just think a lot of picks that don't really help day one. I'll be honest. I think the only two picks that are really going to be positive for him are those offensive linemen. I think we're going to see a big impact from those guys and maybe Emmanuel Forbes day one. But I gave it well, the math says it was a 4.71, and I used my little discretion there to round down to a C plus. I do not think it was close to a B minus at all. A little better than the Cowboys. This all depends on Emmanuel Forbes, right? If he turns out to be a very good corner, then we're looking back on this saying, oh, this was a B, maybe even a B plus draft. But if I had to say right now, I did not love it. I did not love it whatsoever. Next up, we got the Giants. And let me say, let's get to this. From their first three picks, one of the better first three picks. All right, I don't know. This screen right here, the first screen we're going to see from the Giants, it's going to be one of the best in the whole league when we do all of these grades. I just think it got better and better. Deonte Banks at 24. Look, was he my favorite corner? No. Did I think he was one of the 3 or 4 best corners? No. But the Giants had their pick. They took Porter, took Deonte Banks, and they took Deonte Banks. So I'm going to trust them on that. I'm going to say corner was a need, and you got your guy. Show me, that I was wrong for not having Banks in my top 5. That's all I got to say on that. I gave that a B plus. John Michael Schmitz at 57, amazing. They needed interior offensive line. You got arguably the best center in the whole class. A minus. There's just not much to say. They have a need. They fill it with one of the best players at that position. And then 73. I don't know how Jalen Hyatt fell so far. I believe he was my number 4 wide receiver. If I'm not mistaken, I think 4 or 5. Man, steal of the draft. Well, I won't say steal of the draft. Their steal of the draft and their best pick of the draft, if you ask me. When they got Hyatt at 73, I just stopped what I was doing. I'm like, oh my God, how? How? I'm not sure if they moved back up for him, but this is just a very good pick. Very good pick by the Giants, man. Can't even argue with it. Look, these later picks, I'm not even mad at it. You could say they coasted after their first 3, and I'm perfectly fine with it. Eric Gray out of Oklahoma. Normally, I would love this pick if a team got a guy this good at 172, but my problem is that they have a really deep running back room. The only way I could give this any higher than a C is if you told me Saquon wasn't going to be there next year, and Eric Gray could possibly compete for that starting job. Then we're talking, but as of right now, I don't see him, impacting that team much. Trey Hawkins III, big physical. He's a massive guy. I think he was like 6'3", 200 or something, if I read that right. Who knows? Take a shot at 209. That's what I like. I gave it a C plus. Probably going to be a special teams guy right away. But yeah, I mean, come on now. 209, just take a big body guy. See what happens. And then these next two, I'm not sure either of these guys are going to make the roster, so I didn't grade either of those. Did not spend a lot of time on the Giants, but do not mistake that for me being disinterested because look, I think this is one of the better drafts we've done so far. Possibly the best we've done so far, actually. If I had to rank these first 7, I'd say the Giants and the Panthers are right up there. Giants probably taking that crown just based off those first 3 picks. I mean, Jalen Hyatt, Deonte Banks, John Michael Schmitz. You can't argue with that. All 3 of those guys are going to be starters day one and probably play a very big role. So I gave it a B plus overall. For the grade, I actually rounded up. I could have went with a B, but I just think it was that good. Without a doubt, possibly the best we've graded so far. However, that doesn't mean anything because these motherfuckers. Look, as a Seahawks fan, I view the Eagles as competition, and it really does hurt my heart to do this, but let's go right into it. At number 9, they took Jalen Carter. I don't know how he fell to number 9. I was hoping my Seahawks took Jalen Carter. We did not. Jalen Carter is the number 1 player on some people's draft boards. And for some fucking reason, we let the Eagles get him. I don't know. They even moved up 1 spot to just solidify, as even if they had to. They just wanted to make sure they got you. Okay. A plus, green pit. Yeah. Number 31. I was hoping my Seahawks took Nolan Smith at 20. I'm not mad at who we took at 20, but how did he fall to the fucking Eagles? Out of Georgia, same as Jalen Carter, A plus. Yeah. Number 65 and 66, back-to-back picks here. This is where it really gets interesting. I mean, Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown. Both guys who I think next season where we will look at starters and be like, how the hell did the Eagles get these two guys at 65 and 66? Tyler Steen, inside offensive lineman. They lost an offensive lineman to the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. They had to replace him. They saw their guy at 65. I have no doubt he will come in. Maybe not start day one, but if he doesn't start day one next season, I have no doubt he'll be a starting offensive guard. I gave that a B plus easily. Sidney Brown, same thing. Safety in the secondary, they lost C.J. Gardner Johnson, lost Marcus Epps, I think, Mike Epps, Marcus Epps, whatever his name is. Sidney Brown, very good safety. Saw him at 66. That's good value. Gave that a B plus as well. Both these guys, like I said, will be starters next season if I had to bet my money on it. Let me go to this fucking next. They traded for DeAndre, and let me clarify: if you made a trade on draft day to acquire a player, that will count towards this video as an overall draft grade. It was amazing. How the fuck? DeAndre Swift averaged 5.5 yards a carry behind the Lions' offensive line, playing with injuries. How do you get him for a fourth-round pick? Lions, why would you give it to the Eagles? I don't give a fuck if you had to trade him for a sixth to AFC team. Don't trade him to the Eagles. Another fucking Georgia player, of course. That's an A-plus move. I mean, for a fourth-round pick, if DeAndre Swift had 1,100 yards next season, I would not be surprised whatsoever. They just have an amazingly explosive running back room now. It's an A-plus. Kelee Ringo is my CB1. I've taken a lot of heat for that. He fell to the fourth round, so do I look like pretty stupid right now? Yeah, I do. Do you know what isn't so stupid? He gets to go to the Eagles. You're all fucking laughing at me until we see Ringo making big fucking plays in the playoffs as CB3 on the Eagles. Haha. That's an A-plus, bro. Arguably the steal of the whole draft. They traded back up for him, so what do you think that says? Huh? Do you think they thought he was just a random guy with bad hips and no fluidity if they traded back up in the fourth round for him? I don't think so. They see the potential. Everyone sees the potential. The man could play boundary corner or safety as far as I'm concerned. That's an A-plus. This is okay. I can't say everything's an A-plus. Tanner McKee at 188. I think Tanner McKee is not a very good quarterback. There were some people who were saying this man was going to go second round, third round. Ha ha. No, he didn't. 188. Look, I've said it before. I am not a fan whatsoever of drafting or spending a draft pick on, in an attempt to get a backup quarterback. Look, if you want a backup quarterback, especially if you're a Super Bowl contender like the Eagles are, go sign a veteran. What the hell do you think Tanner McKee is going to do? Especially with at 188, there were some talented players up there. So I am very against this pick. I gave it a D plus because, I hate this idea of trying to draft a backup quarterback when you already know. Get a guy who's been in the league for 6 years. No, you know what he is. You know what he's about. Pick one of those guys up. Why draft a guy? Waste a draft pick, in my opinion. That's a D plus. And then at 249, Moro Ojomo. Of course, they get another guy who's projected to go fourth or fifth round. Of course, he falls for whatever. I don't even care why he fell. At the end of the seventh round, this guy, I mean, it's the Eagles. There's too much talent on that defensive line for this guy to come in and not look good. You get what I'm saying? I gave it a B plus because it has to be. It's the Eagles. Look at the distribution. They went heavy on the defense. And look, pay attention here. What did they lose this offseason? They lost secondary and they lost Javon Hargrave on the defensive line. They replaced. I'd say they replaced Javon Hargrave. Goddamn. Brandon Graham's getting up there in age. They got Nolan Smith. They lost a couple secondary. They got Sidney Brown, Kelee Ringo, and then lost DeAndre. They lost Miles Sanders, traded for DeAndre Swift, lost an offensive guard pick. I hate the Eagles. So as you can see, this turned out as a 6.63 for A. You fucking thought I was going to give him an A minus? Are you fucking stupid? I had to overrule the math. Did not math. Okay, I had to overrule it and give him an A plus. It was the best draft. It was just simply the best draft, possibly the best draft I've ever seen. Only time will tell. But if we're including the DeAndre Swift trade, I think the Eagles possibly got 6 starters here. 6 starters from one draft. Watch out. As a Seahawks fan, this makes me very, very sad. What the Eagles were able to put together in the draft. And here's how it shook up. Don't sleep on the Giants. Their first 3 picks, hey, one of the best sets of picks from any team in the draft. And then the Commanders and Cowboys, I was not impressed. I think they were slacking this draft, especially when compared to the Giants. And then, of course, the Eagles. The Eagles have the best draft. There's not even a case to be made for anybody else. It's just a bit. It's making me depressed talking about it. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And we have a lot more of these to do, so be on the lookout. Thanks for watching. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out. But niggas don't know how to act.